I'm Jen Hurd. Welcome to the Thrive Through Life Change event, where we're going to learn how people regain powerful energy, create an inspiring new vision, and a balanced life, in spite of everything going on in the world around us right now. And there's plenty going on. I'm a professional organizer by trade, and over 30 years, I've been doing that, and I decided over this COVID forced vacation to put together an event and look for experts that could really help people that were basically like my clients who are going through major life changes, and that's really who I've met with for over 30 years, to seek out these individuals to help speak into life change and how to do that better and how to survive. And there was a real catalyst for that because over the COVID break, I had a client who had an expected occurrence that was coming up in her life, and it was canceled because of COVID, and she literally laid down and passed away one day. She just couldn't handle the change emotionally and otherwise, and it just really said to me, look, you know, people need to get better equipped. And so it really motivated me, and I've been through significant changes that I wasn't ready for in my life too. So I thought, all right, if I were talking to me 20 years ago when these things happened to me, you know, how could I better arm myself? So the purpose of this show is to really get together experts such as my next guest, Richard, and we'll really be able to dig deep into that aspect of life and how people can better survive and get through these changes and then come out the other side really invigorated and ready and with a goal in mind, with a new goal in mind, with, you know, their life. So without any further ado, my guest today is Richard Battle. He's an award-winning author of a number of books, including The Master Sales Secret, Unwelcome Opportunity, Conquering Life's Course, which is a really neat collection of inspiring stories and principles for life that have been proven over time to really work for people. Also, he's done the Volunteer Handbook, How to Organize and Manage a Successful Organization, The Four-Letter Word That Builds Character, and Surviving Grief by God's Grace. He currently serves on the board of directors for the Alpha Kappa Psi, I have to practice my Greek today, International Professional Business Fraternity. And he was the past chairman of that organization as well. And he was appointed by Texas Governor Rick Perry to the Texas Judicial Council. He served on the board of a lot of organizations, the John Ben Shepherd Public Leadership Foundation, Boy Scouts of America, Muscular Dystrophy Association, which I have some history with myself, so I love that. And he was also president of the Austin Junior Chamber, and U.S. Junior Chamber of Commerce recognized their chapter as the most outstanding chapter in the United States. Richard has been a public speaker and trainer for over 30 years on a lot of topics like volunteerism and leadership and sales and faith. And so he previously worked with Keytrack, a Reynolds and Reynolds company, for a long time in sales and management and leadership. So he's really got an amazing, robust background to talk to us about change. So welcome, Richard.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you about your experiences today. I want to give people a really good deep dive into your background because it's diverse and it's interesting. And just with that, it shows that you've navigated a lot of change successfully. So I wanted to paint that picture for people. You have 6 books, soon to be 7.
Yes.
And some are about business and volunteering because that's been your history of work in that area. But also the more recent books have been about some curveballs in life. And so that's where I wanted to really dig in. So let's talk a little bit about Unwelcome Opportunity first. So in that book, you write a little bit about how to emerge from a challenge. So can you talk to our audience a little bit about the story, like the background of the book and why you decided to write it?
Yes. Well, that book, and it was totally unplanned until a friend suggested it would have a better impact for people than writing an additional sales book would. And the story basically was I was preparing for a divorce after a long marriage. I was in terrific health. October 31st, Halloween 2016, the divorce occurred. 3 weeks later, the day before Thanksgiving, I'm in the hospital having my widowmaker artery stented. Totally out of the blue. I've been in the best shape of my life. Played in an international softball tournament, did 51 miles in 5 days of running and walking, and then all of a sudden I'm in the hospital. The best Thanksgiving I ever had in the hospital after surviving that, because most people don't get warning, they just pass away.
Yep.
4 months later in March, I had to go in for another stent, and there's a whole story about that in the volume as well. And then August 9th of 2017, less than 10 months later, I received a diagnosis of advanced prostate cancer or aggressive prostate cancer. And Unwelcome Opportunity, Overcoming Life's Greatest Challenges, is basically the story of how God brought me through all of those events and through the other side, where I could tell that story and try to give people encouragement in the challenges they face in life.
Yeah. My sister's a naturopathic doctor, and she gets a lot of cancer patients and is working with a lot of individuals who go through similar circumstances. And it's really difficult to know, the course of action to take. And I think it does take a lot of prayer and a lot of thoughtfulness, in that having that spiritual direction is huge as you're working through all those decisions that come your way too, as you're entering into that. What would you say is the most powerful lesson that you teach in the book? Like, what is the takeaway that really stands out in your mind that would help people going through some change like that? Let's say it's a health challenge, for example.
Well, the first thing is, for me, my faith is very important, and it has been demonstrated over and over how God has carried me through these things. So if someone does not have a faith in a creator, I think it's going to be a more difficult time. But second, it's the attitude, because we all in life, none of us are exempt. And one of the lessons I learned after the loss of my son, which I wrote about in Surviving Grief by God's Grace, was people ask when they go through a trying experience, why me?
Oh.
And I don't believe that's the right question to ask, because that looks in the past. God's not there. He's in the future. It looks in the past. People get hung up in the past, worried about that. And it doesn't make any difference. So to me, the right question to ask when trouble comes is, what now? Let's get through it. What am I supposed to learn? And how can I go forward to help others that might experience similar challenges?
Yeah. I think a lot of people get stuck in the why me, or they get stuck just in that thought spiral, that anger or frustration, that part of the grief process. And they lose so much of their life to that. And, when they can get into the what now faster, they can move into really helping people, as you've done with your books, or, just into whatever that new goal is, because there's no take backs, in life. Like you said, it's done, and it's like, where do you go next? So I totally get it. And I think too, with my sudden changes in my life, I know I got stuck for periods of time. I didn't know what to do. And I set myself to work, but I wasn't really dealing with it. I wasn't looking on a goal. I was just being busy. And sometimes that really, it helps you short term, but it doesn't really, that vision casting, that like what next part is so important to get to.
And the why me, it's as if we don't think we should endure something. Why should we be exempt?
Right.
But all of us have things in life that we're going to experience if we're here long enough.
Oh, for sure.
And we're not exempt, and they're all for a purpose, in my opinion. And we have to find that purpose and utilize it for good going forward.
Yeah. I love the phrase they teach. I'm a Stephen ministry leader, and one of the things they teach is there's no coincidences. It's all God incidences. So he's placed those things in your path. You're supposed to take something away. So you have to seek what that is in that experience, as painful as it may be, because there's something. The interview I did yesterday was with a gal who had severe depression, and she came out of the depression after she had a car accident that showed her how much value there was to her life, because she could have died. She said, I don't know why I wasted so much time being depressed, because God showed me in that terrible accident where I was so badly injured that I didn't die, and I should really love my life. And it's amazing, that sometimes it takes a really serious cathartic event to pull us out of that, the why me,
Yes, and I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I was in line to check in at the gym to work out, and a lady in front of me who I'd seen at church, but I didn't know her name, turned around and said, I really appreciate your book. And before I could ask her which one, she talked about Surviving Grief by God's Grace, which was about the loss of my son, which was published 18 years ago.
Oh my God.
And I don't know when she read it, but she thanked me for it.
I
And
agree.
it encouraged me and talked about the impact of my son's life, which still goes on today, even though he's
Right.
been gone for over 20 years.
Isn't that amazing? That just keeps giving and giving. He keeps giving and giving with
Yes.
what happened. Yeah, that is so neat. That is amazing. And that's got to be so fulfilling for you that thank goodness that you took the time to sit down and process that way and give it to people. You know, that's such a
Yes.
gift. So if even if someone hasn't faced a challenge yet, as you said, we're going to all get there eventually. Something's going to happen. Why do you think people should really just read Unwelcome Opportunity and take those lessons to heart? What's the benefit there?
Well, even if someone hasn't faced a challenge, we all know people who have gone through challenges.
Mhm.
And for example, in that book, I relate how God brought me through it. I used a lot of scripture to help me,
Oh,
encourage me, and I think it can help others as well. And
mhm.
so if someone has a parent or a relative or a friend that's going through a heart issue or cancer or
Mhm.
any other type challenge, I think it will help them see, especially from a man's view. And that was partly what I was
Yeah,
encouraged about, because we men don't like to go to the doctor. We don't like to acknowledge that we're mortal or have
right.
issues. And I was trying to share this so that it would encourage men to make sure they check their health. And if they have issues, I was trying to share what I went through so it might encourage other people going through that. Because, for example, when I was going through the cancer treatments,
Yeah.
each day for 45 radiation treatments, we
Oof.
would meet half a dozen of us in a waiting room, talk, and there were all kinds of attitudes and emotions going through the men that were going through those treatments.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And it was very interesting in that, fortunately, I had a positive attitude and I was trying to use humor where we could. And we joked about the effects of radiation on us and different
Right.
aspects of the treatments, trying to keep people positive going forward, because I
Right.
think a positive attitude is so crucial to
Mhm.
surviving anything.
Right.
Dr. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi death camps
Yes.
and wrote Man's Search for Meaning. I love his story. And what
Uh-huh.
he discovered was the people in the concentration camps that had positive attitudes survived at a greater rate than the people that had negative attitudes.
Yeah.
So our attitudes toward life and what we're experiencing
Mhm.
are critical. And he said man's last freedom was to choose how to respond in any situation. So it's
Oh,
up
yeah.
to us to respond when we're challenged.
So true. So true. I love Viktor Frankl. It's just, yes, exactly. Leading into another question. So a goal of the summit is to learn how to sort of create that vision we were talking about for your future. And when you write in Conquering Life's Course, you discuss how to make sense of sort of chaotic times. And I know there's some funny situations you mentioned in there. Maybe if you could talk about maybe one of the humor, as we were talking about using humor, as you said with the gentleman that had cancer as well. Um, let's talk about maybe one of the funny situations in that book that would be a good example of how to make sense of something chaotic happening to you. What was an occurrence in there that you could tell us about?
Well, a funny story that happened when my daughter was 6, and we were driving from Austin to Dallas to go to a football game. And because of traffic, I turned off the interstate highway and was going to take a shortcut. And my daughter was in the back of the vehicle sleeping, and the road after a mile or so turned into a dirt road with farmland all around it.
Mhm.
But I was confident I could get to the highway to take the shortcut. She awoke and wanted to know where we were. It was the first time in her life she'd ever been off a paved road. And
Oh,
so she started screaming, "We're all going to die. Turn around. Let's go back." And I said, we're not going back. We're not
yeah.
turning around and going back. We're going forward. And the
Right.
next year we made it. Obviously, the next year we got ready to go the same trip. She's 7, and she'd had a lot of anxiety over the trip. And she said, "Daddy, are we going to leave the paved road this year? Or are we going to stay on the paved road?" So she remembered that experience. And don't look back. We're not going that way. We have to go
Yeah.
forward. And that's the lesson I taught her. Don't
Yeah.
look back. Not going that way.
Yeah, exactly. And my daughter she would relish, we used to live in Arizona and we had roads like that. And she used to say, when are we going to hit the whoop-de-doos, which are the roads that have the big
Yeah.
washes in them and they go like this. Mom, when are we going to hit the whoop-de-doo? She would look for the whoop-de-doos. And I said, well, at least you'll be prepared for things in life, I guess,
Yes.
since you're at least on the lookout for them, right? I guess symbolically. But
Yes,
anyway,
and even in the unwelcome opportunity, when we
yeah,
joked about the radiation treatment, we joked about being radiated and having skin burned and then missing targets or all kinds
yeah,
of different things that were going on to try to lighten the atmosphere
yeah.
of what we were going through, because going for 45 treatments, 45 successive weekdays
Yeah.
was could have been a stressful event. And if you
Oh,
focused on that part of it.
and maybe it just creates some camaraderie too. It's like we're all in this together. We're all going through this process together. I think that's one benefit too of sort of befriending some of those guys. And are you in contact with any of them? Do you strike up
A
any
couple of
friendships?
them.
Yeah,
But another thing that's interesting is generally in life, we go through challenges individually or in small groups.
yeah,
And the rest of us walk around, and when we see people, we don't know what challenge they're going through when
true.
we interact with them,
Yeah,
because most of us keep it close to us. And so we don't know when they snap back at us or respond in different ways. They may be going through something that's pretty horrific.
hmm,
And I've seen that as well when I was going through something and people around me were oblivious to what I was going through.
yeah,
But with this pandemic, we're all going through the same challenge at the same time.
yeah,
And it's very interesting to see how people are dealing with it. And I believe there's two types of people.
yeah.
One is the group that is eating, watching TV, and wondering what's going to happen when it's over. The other group is looking for ways to take advantage of this time, like you're doing with this program,
Yeah.
studying, preparing, examining their life, trying to think, what am I going to do as we come out of this? And
Mhm.
that group is going to take off like a rocket ship when this is over. And the other
Yeah.
group's going to wonder, what happened? How come I'm not taking off? How come they passed me up?
Yeah.
And so I just think that's the two groups, and each person has a choice every day. Which group do I want to be in today?
Yeah. I mean, well, I read somewhere that calculus was invented during a pandemic. When people are locked up and they have just their own thoughts to go upon, you really do come out with some amazing ideas. I'm excited to see what comes out of this because I think there'll be people who've had some time to just settle and not be in their busy state all the time. And
Yes.
really, that's what happened to me. I was used to being on site at people's homes 6 days a week. So as soon as I wasn't, I don't sit still well. So I had to think about how am I going to keep myself busy? How am I going to keep my routine? Which I did try to do after about the first week. The first week I did a lazy thing, and then I thought, no, this is a gift in a weird way. But it really was because I had some time to think and some time to really picture, okay, over the course of all these years of doing this, who am I really talking to? And I'm talking to life changers. I'm talking to people who really, and like you said, COVID is a microcosm of that, or maybe a macrocosm of that. But even my patient base, you look at it and you say, okay, there are people who thrive when these things happen, and there are people who fall apart. And what's the
Yes.
difference? So that's what came out of it. It's been great. So how can we, let's see, in terms of casting vision, I want to move to that a little bit, because I know you've worked with a lot of charitable organizations where you've had to probably envision, where are we going with this organization, and just personally with your life changes, having to re-envision. So if you're casting your vision, what is the benefit of prayer, first of all, in casting your vision? I think that's important. And just, if you have suggestions for our viewers about that restart, like when you re-enter, what are some things to consider?
Well, the first thing, I was a person in business who would set goals, have my checklist, and every day I was focused on accomplishing those things on my list.
Yeah.
And here in the last few years, as I've changed and put more of an emphasis on writing and speaking and things of that nature
Right.
versus a corporate life, it's interesting. I still have my plans, but at the end of the day, when I look back and I'm thanking my Lord for the day, I'm
Right.
amazed how many times He has interceded and given me
Oh.
things that have been more impactful for people than things I may have planned. It
Mm-hmm.
is just amazing to me when I see that.
Yep.
I didn't plan on writing a first book. I didn't plan on writing a second one. It's interesting. My experiences obviously weren't planned, successes or failures. And I've had some tremendous successes in life
Yes.
and challenges. And I think I have a pretty unique grouping of experiences, but I couldn't define my life's mission until the last year or so when I look back over all of that. And
Mhm.
now I see my life mission is to try to share timeless messages
Yeah.
of proven principles that can help people live more fulfilling and enriched lives.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do on programs like this or through my writing or speaking, try to share what I've been through to help others as
Yeah.
an example.
Yeah, isn't that amazing how sometimes, again, like you said, within this last year, you look back on it. Sometimes the vision is always there and you're acting on it because it's just in you. You're built, you're wired for that, you know. But again, you see it from that 100, story view looking down and go, oh, okay, yeah, there it is. That's really how it crystallizes. But I think too that people walking out of a specific circumstance, sometimes like loss of a child, for example, they get very goal oriented. For example, like even Mothers Against Drunk Driving came about because maybe, someone was killed from someone driving.
Yes.
And so this organization was founded, etc. So there's a lot of great organizations that come out of that. Um, and I don't know, I just think I'm amazed by the things that people discover through hardship, and turn around and do. I really am. I think this is the most fun part of doing this event is meeting people like yourself who have taken these things and learned to teach it, learned to, come through it and taught.
Well, we all grieve differently, and that was one thing that I learned. My former wife and we made it 15 years after the loss of our son
It's
before
amazing.
we split, but we both grieved differently.
Mhm.
Her method of grief was doing projects around the house,
Mm,
hands-on type things. Mine
yeah.
was studying scripture and reading every book I could get my hands on
Mm,
from somebody who lost a child, and journaling. And
yeah.
that was mine. And so we grieved together some, but yet we had to respect each other's differences and how we individually grieved as well. And everyone grieves differently when there is a loss, and there is no single process. We see that step process, which I think there's some truth to that, but I don't think
Yeah.
that's an ironclad thing either.
No, I think some people definitely skip steps or do them in a different order or whatever because it's all individual. That's definitely true. I know with sudden loss that I had in my life, I stayed more in the anger phase for a long time. I sat in that for a while, and not with other people. I didn't take it out on other people. I think I was more blaming and angry at myself and whatever. But I do see that. I think like other people just go to they stick in the sadness longer or whatever. There's just a different flow. Very interesting. So you have a new book coming out. I want to jump to the new book because I think it's a follow-up to Conquering Life's Course, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us a little
Yes.
bit about the new creation. What was the impetus for that?
Well, basically, it was a continuation of Conquering Life's Course, which is 40 essays of proven principles. And that Conquering Life's Course, I have over 140 examples of
Oh,
people, places, and events that prove the principles in addition to my personal stories. In the
amazing.
new book, which I just titled yesterday and it's finished and getting ready to go to press, it's Navigating Life's Journey. It'll
Journey.
be very similar. It'll be 40 essays, again, on proven principles. And in it, I have 75 motivational quotes, and there's over 280 examples of people, places, and events of current and historical figures to try to illustrate the positive impact of life and the proven principles that have built our great country.
Oh, that's going to be amazing. That's going to be a gift in itself. Well, as soon as that comes out, we'll have to make sure and promote it to our list and everything. I'll let everybody know. And then you've also offered a gift to our viewers for participating today. And so if they visit richardbattle.com and they sign up for your newsletter, and that will also provide them the launch, I'm sure, for the new book, they'll be sent 3 chapters from the prior book, Conquering Life's Course, Common Sense in Chaotic Times. So that'll give them a little
Yes.
feel for, a little flavor, right, for the first book of the 2. And then they can get the new one as soon as it comes out. So this is really exciting. I can't wait. I'm going to get a copy myself for sure. I definitely want to read it, especially after we've had this chat. I think I will just absolutely lock minds with you on this. So anyway, any other few, like thoughts for our viewers? Any last tips that we can give them in terms of going through challenge and how to get their energy back in this, especially like in this time that we're going through? It's very, very exhausting.
Well, one of the videos I shared on YouTube, and I have a channel, Richard V. Battle, on YouTube, was our attitude right now, I think, should be one of gratitude, not frustration. We can't control what's going on, but we can control our attitude. And I'm grateful for what we don't have. And I look back at the siege of Leningrad in 1941 to early 1944, when 800,000 civilians died of starvation and cold and disease.
Yeah.
They suffered for over 800 days, yet they endured and survived. I'm grateful for what we do have in this pandemic. We still have water, access to food, power, communications like this.
Yeah.
We have so many things our ancestors didn't have 100 years ago in the Spanish flu epidemic. So I think it's how we perceive what we're going through. And if we look at it in the most positive light, we'll endure it in a much better method than if we look at it in a negative light.
Sure. Yeah. That historic content, or, you know, the putting it in that context, it really does help, because boy, you know, the term first world problems, I mean, yes, we have to isolate and whatnot, but things could be a lot worse. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
And the gratitude aspect too. I just think every day you've got it. My recommendation for people always is, and I've done this with my daughter from the time she was 2 years old and could conceptualize gratitude. You know, end your day with it, start your day with it. Even if you don't feel like it, come up with something. We, in our house, if you couldn't think of something that night to be grateful for, we would say, thank you, Lord, for cake, because you're always grateful for cake. So if you don't have one, there you go.
Yes, there's always something to be grateful for.
Yeah, that was always this place filler. If it had been a really lousy day, cake, there's always cake. So anyway, I really want to thank you, Richard, for joining us today. This was great. I want to remind everyone to sign up for Richard's newsletter at richardbattle.com, and tune in for our 21 Days of Thrive Through Life Change event, where we'll have lots of great speakers like Richard, and we'll talk about life changes and different things people have been through and how to get through with success and energy and an improved vision. So thank you, everyone. This is Jen Hurd and Richard Battle signing off, and
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.